Flushing waste down the drain for many of us is one of the easiest methods of disposal, and we have a perception that it all vanishes into thin air. But there's more to flushing waste than we think.
The wastewater department of the City of Cape Town runs 27 wastewater facilities around Cape Town. Now that's spread in a 50-kilometer square radius. So each catchment has a wastewater treatment plant, and we talk about catchments as how big that area is to bring the water to the wastewater treatment plant. If you talk specifically about the Bellville treatment works, it caters for the Kuils River area, Bellville area, Durbanville, Belhar, and in general it's about 300,000 people equivalent that it's treating wastewater from. It's a 54 megaliter or 54 million liters per day that it's treating every day on average. It has its peaks, so it could go up to about 150 megaliters as a peak, or it can go low down during the night. A wastewater treatment works is there to treat people's wastewater, and that wastewater comes from your toilets, your baths, and your sinks. Once you pull the plug or the chain in your toilet, that water, that dirty water goes down what we call a reticulation system or sewer system. That water is either gravitating to a pump station where it will be lifted and then pumped up to a wastewater treatment works. Once it arrives at the treatment works, and you'll see from this aerial photograph that it will arrive at an inlet works where the water is lifted, the rags and muck is taken out by means of screens, and the cleaner water then goes through a process. These are the screens. They are fork-rate stuff, like a fork, or the rags and rubbish will come in. As you can see, some of them are still there. They will get captured by that screen and then get lifted over to a carrier on the other side, and it will be transported out.
We're all personally responsible for our actions and our behavior. These days we have such large numbers concentrated in our cities that even a few people's bad habits can create problems for the systems that try and treat our effluents. You know, if you look at the different habits that people have got, we all like personal care products. We enjoy having fancy shampoos and creams and bath salts and stuff like that in our baths, and all of that doesn't disappear, you know, after you've put it on your skin. Even if it's dried, if you go and bath again, it ends up in the water. And these personal care products are very difficult to remove from the sewage system. I suppose one of the biggest culprits are things like unmetabolized medications. Just think about contraceptives, for instance. Not everything that you take is metabolized, so a lot of that passes through your system and ends up in our sewage works. And our sewage works are simply not equipped to take those sort of things out. Not only that, but they're very difficult to detect, because you must realize they're there in quite low quantities, and to be able to detect them you have to pre-concentrate them. So that analysis to find those components in the water is complicated, because you have to use a different procedure for each different compound. You don't get one magic procedure that shows you all the organic compounds at the same time.
Some of the challenges are the excessive peak flows that's coming into the works, and that's during rainy periods where people are opening their drains up and allowing stormwater to come down the sewers. There's also the challenge of industrial effluents coming in, which in fact causes the plant to operate in a substandard manner. And here we're talking about chemicals, the metals, especially from galvanizing places like the zincs that will come down here. If we have too much of these heavy metals coming down, they do affect the performance of the organisms and therefore the performance of the wastewater treatment works.
If you think about the contraceptives, these end up in going through the wastewater treatment system and end up in nature, and obviously they're disrupting biological cycles and damaging the ecology in that way. And endocrine disruptors which end up in the system are blocking the enzymes and the signalers in your body that help you to develop properly, and they're inclined to cause birth defects in fish and in birds and even in humans, So if we can't get those things out of the water, we're busy damaging our environment irreversibly.
What you're seeing down here is what we term the activated sludge plant. It's a biological process with an array of organisms, which in fact using the dirty water now as food and cleans it up. We give the organisms oxygen, and they can then do what organisms naturally do, is eat and produce. But the whole idea is to clean the water, and we're using a natural process to do that. When we talk about cleaning of the water, what are we trying to do? In the water there are nutrients. There are nutrients in the water, and the nutrients are the nitrogen compounds and the phosphate compounds. Phosphate is what we call a limiting compound that in fact allows growth of flora to take place in the water bodies. It either allows plants to grow, water hyacinth to grow, algae to grow, and that's what we're trying to minimize. We don't want that to grow or minimize the amount of that growth. So the idea is when in a wastewater treatment plant is to take some of those nutrients out, and those nutrients are then contained in the sludge that I spoke about earlier on. And that sludge, that nutrients become useful for some other process in plants on an agricultural field. Well, what we're trying to show you, we do a settling test on those clarifiers to see how good the sludge settles. Now this has been for a couple of minutes. You will see that the clarified effluent is on top there now, and the sludge will sit at the bottom. That sludge gets recycled back to the works, and the clarified effluent goes off. Okay? And then the other aspect about the clarified effluent, we do use it on irrigation, as I said, at the Peninsula Technicon, or Kaput, Cape Peninsula of Technology, and some of the industries, and that we promoting the reuse of effluent in terms of complementing or supplementing the potable use of water.
The polluted water flowing into a treatment plant carries along with it a variety of chemicals that are removed using bacteria. Without proper maintenance, the process releases toxic gases. These gases become a health concern to people living around the wastewater treatment plant when they are exposed to them over a long period of time.
These bacteria are very good at digesting organic pollutants, but they can't really deal with inorganics, and there are some organics that are very toxic to them. And when they're busy working away at digesting the organisms, they can release the toxic gases like hydrogen sulfide, and obviously due to their nature, some of these digesters are aerobic or anaerobic, and depending on the process that you go through, you can end up with CO2 being emitted and methane and other such gases, H2S is very poisonous. Even in very low levels, it's toxic. And when things go wrong at the sewage plant, you often get a very strong smell, and that's usually due to some problem with the microbial population in the sewage system.
When we design these wastewater treatment plants, we will try to do nitrogen removal, and we'll do phosphate removal, and in the large extent, the process of oxygen-demanding materials. Now, let me explain what oxygen-demanding materials are. Is in fact, you don't want the water to go out and it has a demand on the oxygen in the water itself, in your riverine environment or place. Because once it takes that oxygen out, it's killing off the rest of the organisms in the water bodies. So you're trying to prevent for that from happening. So you want a lively ecosystem, if I want to put it that way, to prevail in our environment. And that's, we form the first basis of protecting the environment. It's not an easy business to be in. It's a very important job that we are. I don't think people actually understand that when they pull the chain, there's something that somebody and something is going to help them clean the water so they can enjoy the riverine environment, or the flays, or the water bodies that we have recreation in. In Cape Town, we do not use the effluent from a wastewater treatment plant for drinking purposes. We do use it for irrigation. We irrigate the lawns, and we use it in industries. So the water is good enough to be used in industries, not for drinking purposes at this stage. We haven't cleaned the water that far. It's possible, but not yet at the moment.
If you have any stories in your community, email us at info@groundup.org.za or visit our website on www.groundup.org.za. You can also follow us on Twitter @groundup_news.